Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's ISC2 Knowledge Vault webinar. Once again, I'm joined for our monthly series by Steve Piper, who's the founder and CEO, as you may know, of CyberEdge, now launching a new news-oriented website called Security Buzz. You can check it out at securitybuzz.com. And today's focus is on cybersecurity and AI. Really, who's ahead? It seems like a neck and neck race. Every time I hear of a new Gen AI inspired phishing attack, I learn of a new generative AI threat modeling tool. Well, we're going to be unpacking that over the next hour here. We've got definitely a full house of you fine folks out there in the audience, some of our highest registration numbers. So don't be shy with your questions. Please let us know your thoughts as we're going through the material. Welcome back, Steve. I just fled the hurricane from InfoSec world, and boy, Gen AI, machine learning, all things AI was the top billing across the board. So super excited for your material. Let me get these slides up for you. And as always, feel free to reach out to me and have me chime in. I've been all over this thing for the last couple of years, so I'm happy to offer my perspective, but the baton is yours, sir.
Oh, it's always more fun when you chime in. So as always, chime in frequently. Now, before I begin, happy National Daughters Day to all the ladies in the audience. I have two daughters of my own that are 18 and 23. I did knocked out the obligatory Facebook post this morning, sent them text messages. So if you have daughters, make sure you know that today is National Daughters Day and how much you appreciate them. All right, our agenda. We covered this topic for the first time a couple years ago, and we had well over 5,000 registrants for that webinar, and we have well over 5,000 registrants for today's webinar. This is among the hottest topics in the entire cybersecurity industry. So in the way of an agenda, I'm going to do a brief primer, however you want to say it, on artificial intelligence. If you want a bigger perspective, go to Bright Talk, search my last name or AI or whatever, and you'll find a couple other webinars that we've done on this topic. I'm not going to go into much detail, but there are a few things for those of you where this is your first AI webinar with me. I want to give you some things to think about that I think are really important and catch you up on some of the latest news. But then we're going to focus on the benefits of AI for security teams and the benefits of AI for cyber threat actors. Okay, we know that AI is a double-edged sword. So after we talk about the benefits for the good guys and the benefits for the bad guys, we're going to debate who has the upper hand. And we're going to ask this question in two ways. Who has the upper hand today? And then who do we think will have the upper hand in the years ahead? Because I do think they are completely different questions. Okay. And then in closing, 3 tips. There's a zillion tips out there, but 3 tips in particular that I think are important to embrace to prepare for AI threats ahead of us. And then, as always, we'll save time for Q&A. So a very brief primer. I want you to think about AI as a game-changing technology. Okay, this is just as big as these other game-changing milestones over the decades. So home computers, internet, laptops, when SaaS applications were invented, the first smartphone, when that was invented, we had no idea how that was going to change our lives. Content streaming, smartwatches, video conference, this is the next big thing. The AI is going to monumentally change the way that we do business, and over time monumentally change the way that we live our lives. And I believe mainly for the better, but could be in some instances for the worse. Now, to put this in a further perspective, if you're an old guy like me, if you've been around for a while, and you remember when the first smartphone came out in 2007, try to think back when you held that in your hand for the very first time and looking at the screen with buttons on the screen, like a little mini computer that could, predict the weather, and you could have your calendar in there and check stock quotes and all these great things. Now, back in 2007, how many of us really knew that you were going to be able to enter a concert and use that to enter a concert, or to pay for your groceries at the grocery store, or to do an EKG, or now with Apple's latest announcement, monitor for potential sleep apnea. Who knew? Who knew that all this stuff was coming in 2007? This is how I want you to think about artificial intelligence. We don't know what we don't know. We certainly know how this is impacting us today, but we don't know how this is going to impact us in the future, in our roles as cybersecurity professionals and in our daily lives. Another thing that I wanted to point out, I thought this was an interesting stat. When Netflix was invented, it took 3.5 years to reach 1 million users. When Twitter came out, which these days is X, 2 years to reach a million users. Facebook took 10 months. Spotify took 5 months. ChatGPT took 5 days. Okay, that's how hot generative AI is right now, and AI in general. This is a stat. It's a little bit old now, but it certainly depicts the aggressive growth that we're going to see in AI spending in the years ahead. A compound annual growth rate of 26.5%. It wouldn't surprise me if that was even a little bit higher today. Now, just thinking about generative AI, when I'm talking about AI, I certainly am talking about generative AI, but I also want you to think about AI in the context of machine learning and deep learning and large language modules and so on, topics that we've covered in previous webinars. OpenAI continues to dominate the generative AI market share. Microsoft, which is a big investor in OpenAI, which is the inventor of ChatGPT, they have 30%, but their Microsoft Copilot is based on ChatGPT 4 technology. So add it together, and just about 7 in 10 generative AI users are using ChatGPT as a foundation. AI also requires extensive computing power. When I saw this chart, I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, "Wow, this is crazy." So Goldman Sachs did this forecast, and this is U.S. only. And I know our audience today is global, and this is a global phenomenon. But this chart is based in the U.S. So look where we are in 2024. Ignore the dotted lines with the dot. That's the bear case, the bull case. We don't need to worry about that now. Just look at the column charts. The dark blue is power that is used by data centers that aren't embracing AI, versus the light blue is going to be the delta, the incremental increase in power that is needed to drive artificial intelligence. Okay. Now, today, data centers comprise about 4% of the power from our power grid. Okay. And only a sliver of that is AI. But it is forecasted. Look at the last bar, 2030. Okay, just 6 years from now, 8%. It's forecasted that 8% of power will be attributed to data centers, with 2 percentage points, a quarter of that 8%, just the incremental power that you'll need for artificial intelligence. Another way of looking at that is by the end of the year, I'm sorry, by the end of the decade, about 1 out of $50 spent on power may be attributed to artificial intelligence. That is massive if we're anywhere near that. That's why Microsoft just recently announced that they are attempting to sign a contract to obtain power from reinvigorating the nuclear power plant at 3 Mile Island, which of course they had the reactor meltdown in 1979. And they want to invest in that just to fuel their increased demand for power that's going to be driven by artificial intelligence in the years ahead.
Steve, before you go on to the next slide, I read something just this morning that many of the Bitcoin and crypto mining data centers, because they do rely on GPUs so much with the recent halving of Bitcoin and some of the other turmoil in that market, are transitioning to become AI data centers. So some of that consumption for AI specific, while it will go up, I don't know that it will necessarily be net new demand, as some of these other operations realize it's a heck of a lot more profitable. So kudos to them for making the transition, but it'll be interesting to see. And my background being in utilities, this one I'm tracking closely.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So when I did this topic for the first time a couple years ago, we talked about government regulations. There was next to nothing, or like barely anything, and now over the last couple of years, we've seen a little more regulation. I would say we need even more regulation, here in the U.S. But the White House issued its blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, and then what the White House in the Biden administration issued the executive order on the safe, secure, and trustworthy development and use of artificial intelligence. Now, a couple years ago, NIST had just come out with AI 100-1. Now there's a new framework, and this is part of the NIST AI risk management framework. Okay. If you're not familiar with that framework, it's time to get familiar with it because it's going to impact a lot of organizations. NIST AI 600-1 was specifically designed to help satisfy the requirements of the White House executive order. The U.S. Department of Defense has issued something called AI principles, and there is proposed legislation in Congress called the Algorithmic Accountability Act. Okay, the when I first talked about this, the AI Act in Europe, specifically the European Union, had not officially passed yet. Now it has passed. Canada has proposed legislation. Germany, Brazil, Japan, Singapore, South Korea, and China, and the UAE are also either have legislation in place or are working on it. So it's definitely going to affect our universes in the years ahead. All right, now let's get into the nitty gritty here. The benefits of AI for security teams. It's a double-edged sword. It truly is. And we're going to start out here quoting a stat from our most recent cyber threat defense report, which we're so privileged to have ISC2 as a platinum sponsor of. Every year for the last 11 years, we asked 1,200 security professionals from 17 different countries about various topics of the day. And in our last CDR, we inserted a question, and we're going to look at three of the questions. Actually, I think three or four, but this specific question was about how AI benefits security teams. Okay, and here were the choices, and the number one choice was improve our ability to detect and block cyber threats. That is the number one biggest benefit that security teams are seeing. Number two, improve our ability to respond to security incidents. Number three, and barely number three, almost tied with number two, improve our ability to detect and patch vulnerabilities. Next, improve workforce efficiency, in other words, accomplishing more with fewer resources. And then finally, improve our ability to research threat actors and their tactics. Okay, so we're going to talk about these benefits in more detail, starting with detecting and blocking malware. Okay, so for so many years, we relied on signature-based defenses to detect known threats targeting known vulnerabilities. And then we got better and we created signatures that could detect unknown threats, but the vulnerabilities were still known. And then sandboxing came out, and that was really big technology. But in recent years, we've seen so much investment from security vendors on threat detection and prevention tools that can detect zero-day threats. In other words, never before seen threats that are targeting never before seen vulnerabilities. And today's threat detection engines are powered by machine learning and deep learning, artificial intelligence. They are better at detecting threats than ever before. So they can do static file analysis. They also do anomaly detection from both a network and a user standpoint, basically setting a baseline of what is normal network traffic for your computer network, and then looking for anomalies, such as one workstation connecting to another workstation, or laptop connecting to another laptop, which should rarely, if ever, be the case, or large volumes of data getting downloaded by a user that's never happened before, or user anomalies. John Doe logs on in New York and then 30 seconds later logs on in London. And then behavior analysis, looking for anomalies of how users and user accounts access sensitive data. attempting to modify system settings when that user has never attempted to do that before, or establish connections to suspicious domains, which could possibly be maybe a command and control center. Next, automating incident response processes. I love security tools that give you a way to work smarter rather than harder. Okay, I'm a big fan of SOAR, and now there's a lot of spin-off tools out there that are related to this security orchestration and automation technology, automation and response, such as security event validation and prioritizing, trying to figure out which events are real, identifying and isolating infected systems. So go ahead and quarantine a system that may have been involved in a compromise, automatically notifying users of compromised devices, blocking suspicious IP addresses at the firewall automatically, terminating malicious processes, revoking access credentials, disseminating alerts and updates from the incident response team, determining root causes. These are so many different things that can be done in an automated way, and that can do them even better because of the benefits of machine learning and deep learning algorithms. Prioritizing vulnerability patching. I've done multiple webinars on risk-based vulnerability management and cyber exposure, and feel free to check those out on Bright Talk. Long gone are the days of just prioritizing which vulnerabilities to patch based on the CVSS score alone. MITRE, which is the nonprofit, maintains the CVE database, Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, a database of vulnerabilities. And every vulnerability has a CVSS score, Common Vulnerability Scoring System, from 0 to 10, and 10 being really critical. Long gone are the days of just prioritizing patching based on the severity of the vulnerability. So now we're taking factors of, is the host accessible from the internet? Are there known exploits out there in the wild? What is the business criticality? And machine learning plays a very big role in that. And then now sentiment analysis. That's something that's new. Monitoring vulnerability, exploiting discussions in online chat rooms and discussion forums and social media platforms and blogs, and that's really a very cool development. Okay, integrating generative AI into security tool administrative interfaces, the ability to ask questions using language that you would use in your everyday life, like show me all devices connected to the internet with critical vulnerabilities, or show me all devices with log4j vulnerabilities. Using generative AI to do deeper research into your cyber adversaries, understanding attack paths. How did an attack actually happen? What was the path it took? Where did it originate? Generating compliance reports, customizing security policies, quantifying security risks, seeking remediation guidance. So generative AI is playing a huge role in security tools moving forward. And then optimizing identity and access management, risk-based authentication based on the user location. So are they in an airport lounge in Atlanta, like Brandon is, versus somewhere else? Are they, is the user using a known or unknown device or browser? Maybe the time of their access, where they've never tried to attempt to connect at 3:30 in the morning. Continuous authentication based on, and this is really cool, typing speed. Okay, so I can type 65 words a minute. Pretty, best class I ever took in high school, and now I'm suddenly typing at 27 words per minute. Is that analogy? Is that suspicious? Or mouse movements? I'm right-handed, and maybe I move my mouse in a different way versus a left-handed person. Or device interaction habits. Automating user onboarding and offboarding, self-service password resets. These are just a sampling of the ways that artificial intelligence is going to improve our ability and tasks around identity and access management. Okay. All right. But what's good for the goose is also good for the gander. And the benefits of AI for cyber threat actors, the bad guys, are going to benefit in a lot of different ways. Okay. So this is also from our cyber threat defense report. How do we predict that artificial intelligence will benefit cyber threat actors? Top of the list here. We believe that it's going to improve their ability to discover weaknesses in cybersecurity defenses, increase the sophistication of cyber threats, provide more effective, well-written phishing and spear phishing emails. We've already seen that, and I'm going to show you an example in just a couple minutes. Increased volume of cyber threats, potential fraud associated with deep fake photos, videos, or audio. There are some disturbing developments related to deep fakes that I'm going to touch on. Improve ability to uncover zero-day vulnerabilities. So these are all things that are going to benefit the bad guys out there. Now, this is really concerning. And let me click the pause button and just talk about artificial intelligence and one of the concerns from the United Nations and a lot of democratic countries out there, that there's a fear that some military, whether it's North Korea or China or Russia, or who the hell knows, it could be us. I mean, in the U.S., but there's a fear that a military may produce robots that are armed with weapons that are using artificial intelligence to go out on the battlefield and make decisions on when to fire, who to fire at, and so on, and the hope of minimizing human life, the loss of human lives. Okay, and so there's a fear for that. So with that in mind, I'm clicking on pause. Let's go back to the security realm. In 2024, researchers at University of Illinois successfully configured autonomous AI agents. I'm going to mentally underline the word autonomous AI agents that are based on GPT-4. They're GPT-4 bots to scan for and exploit known vulnerabilities. Okay, and these bots were very successful. And there is a belief that these bots could be used to uncover zero-day vulnerabilities. So imagine, I certainly I could imagine, security vendors, okay, which are very innovative. There's, more than 3,000 security vendors on planet Earth, and they're constantly innovating. And I could certainly imagine, the security vendors and, creating these bots to be used for good, okay, where they're just kind of crawling all over your computer network and devices looking for potential security risks. But what if these autonomous AI agents, these bots, get in the hands of malicious threat actors? Okay, and then they use social engineering to, install, a remote access Trojan that, downloads this bot and then spreads like a worm. Think of it like a worm, like a computer worm, like, Configure from years ago, and computer worms are still relevant today, but these worms are spies, and they're just combing the network looking for potential zero-day vulnerabilities, potential known vulnerabilities, potential security misconfigurations, and doing reconnaissance, reporting this back to the CNC server and ultimately back to the threat actors. Okay, that scares the bejesus out of me. I don't know, Brandon, does this scare you?
So I'm not sure if this was the same group, but I read recently a group had done a capture the flag contest with
Yes.
agents, and
Yes.
it didn't just, so it couldn't figure out the actual capture the flag, but it found a vulnerability in the Docker deployment for the event and took that out instead, which I thought was compelling.
It might have been
It thought
this year's
outside of the
Black Hat.
box.
Yeah, it might have been. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
No, I know
Not
what you're
Black
talking
Hat. DEF CON.
Yep,
So this year's DEF CON in Las Vegas, and I believe it was run by the FBI, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's what you might be referring to.
Yeah, that one was like, ooh, that's interesting. Now, I've used these agents to actually crawl sites and find, architectural considerations for improvement. I've built a few of these agents myself, but never with this kind of sophistication. So I think this is extremely exciting and very interesting. We need to start building blue team agents now.
Yes, and then then are the red teams going to build those agents as well? And the point here that I'm saying is there's a lot of benefit that could be for good, but it's scary how this could potentially use for bad. back to my analogy of military, these robots that are weaponized and make autonomous decisions. What if these bots not only uncover vulnerabilities and security misconfigurations, but what if they're also equipped to exploit them right there on the spot, rather than just reporting back recon? Some scary things to think about here. And so AI is, like I said, a double-edged sword. One of the things that we talked about is the sophistication of AI threats. And Black Mamba, and I've talked about this before. This is a poster child example of something that's crazy sophisticated. And let me tell you how this works. So Black Mamba begins as a benign file, just harmless. Typically delivered through a phishing or maybe a spear phishing email or file attachment, or maybe a drive-by download. You just visit a website, you don't click on anything, and it's a malicious website or a good website that was affected with malicious code. And so, however, this benign file gets delivered to the host. Okay, then when it's executed, maybe it's part of something else that gets executed, some shareware or some tool or whatever it is. It queries generative AI. So imagine it querying ChatGPT, for example, and ask ChatGPT to generate a Python script to do something. Okay, so now the Python script gets downloaded, and it's just a script. Okay, so still your IPS technology, your next gen firewall, your secure web gateway, all this stuff, it's not picking up on it because there's nothing malicious yet. It's still benign stuff. Okay, so the Python script gets executed in memory, so it doesn't get saved to disk. So when you're doing scans of malware that are saved to disk, it's not being picked up. So now this malicious code is executed in memory, courtesy of generative AI. Black Mamba phones home to its CNC server, just using natural language, and then commands may be given back to Black Mamba. Could include data exfiltration, credential theft, spreading to other systems, possibly deploying ransomware. Okay, now we've caught up. Okay, so security vendors are pretty good at detecting Black Mamba type techniques. But cybersecurity is a game of cat and mouse, and one it takes a step above the other, and back and forth and back and forth. This was scary when this came out, and I'm scared of what's going to follow next. What sort of techniques? I got to say, it's ingenious. Okay, it's a very creative approach, and I'm scared of what other creative, ingenious approaches are around the corner from threat actors. Malicious chatbots. So the chat GPTs of the world are supposed to have safeguards built in so that those tools cannot be used for malicious means. Now, there are generative AI tools that are purpose built for cybercrime, such as Worm GPT, Fraud GPT. There are others. They're sold on the dark web. The latest I saw, Worm GPT is €100 per month or 500 a year. Fraud GPT is $200 a month, 1,700 a year. Maybe they'll have a Black Friday special in November. But key features. So generate highly convincing phishing emails, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, that you can largely do with just ChatGPT itself. Generate custom malware and ransomware. Generate social engineering scripts that mimic human interactions, which is, I don't know, 99 point whatever percent of threat actors out there, English is not their native language. And that's always been an Achilles heel, trying to communicate through, text messages, through chat exchanges, through email, when English is not your first language. Okay, these malicious generative AI tools can help fix that. Suggest evasion techniques to avoid detection. And again, these don't have any safeguards. There's no ethical constraints to these tools. Okay. Now, one of the telltale signs that we've had over the years of when we train our users how to detect a phishing or a spear phishing email is does the writing make sense? Okay. If it appears to be coming from a native English speaker, and the wording just is way off, and of course there's lots of other ways to tell, but this is one of the telltale signs of a phishing or spear phishing attack. I think the problem that we're going to have in the years ahead is instead of the phishing or spear phishing email being written poorly, it might be written too well. So now your CFO sends you, you work in accounting or finance, and the CFO sends you an email asking you to trigger a wire transfer, and you know what, this language, the writing is way better than what the CFO could have written, and maybe maybe it'd be the opposite, but we'll see. But I did this. Okay, so I subscribed to ChatGPT, and this is just a screenshot of my exchange with ChatGPT. I said, write a short email using casual language asking my colleague to evaluate the attached payroll report. Okay. Subject, quick favor, payroll report review needed. Hey, not hi or hello. Hey, colleague name, insert the name. Hope you're doing well. I just finished up this month's payroll report and attached it here. Now this is a little weird. Could you do me a solid? but I thought that was interesting. Could you do me a solid? Like, I guess, the person's grew up in the 1970s or whatever, and give it a quick once over. No rush, but if you could get back to me by this date, that would be awesome. Your keen eye for detail. Thanks a million. So this is very casual language. It's very Americanish, and this was done with just regular Chat GPT. Deep fakes. Okay, when I talked about this a couple years ago, the way I put it was the good, the bad, and the ugly of artificial intelligence. This falls under ugly, and this is ugly from so many different perspectives. Deep fake audio voicemails, deep fake videos, deep fake pornography. Okay, so imagine you work for a company and you're hoping to get a raise, soon, and you get this email with a fake video, and the person doesn't propose it to be true because you weren't in a porn scene, but it has your face overlapping and your voice in this video, and if you don't pay so many dollars of Bitcoin, we're gonna, send this to the entire company. Okay, and it okay within days, it'll be, or hours probably, that a message will go out to your colleagues saying this is fake and whatever. But still, how embarrassed would you be? That's just disgusting on a whole new level. I mean, there's just a special place in hell for threat actors that do that. I'm scared to death of election interference deepfakes. We're already starting to see that. So this past January, there was a fake Joe Biden robocalls telling New Hampshire Democrats, you know what, it's in the bag. You don't even need to show up. This has affected other countries like Slovakia, the Chicago mayor's race. Here's something that, gosh, I hope this doesn't happen. Okay, so this election in the U.S., it appears that it's just going to be razor thin, and it's going to be settled by 7 swing states, and in one or more of the swing states it may be defined by a few thousand voters. So imagine there's deep fake video of whoever, whatever candidate it is, and it comes out at 5 a.m. on the day of the election. Okay, and it looks like it's smoking gun evidence of someone taking a bribe or someone talking bad about people of color, or I mean, just let you can imagine how horrible it would be. And no one wants an election to be decided by deep fake video or deep fake audio sent the day, on election day, that if people believe this disinformation, might just keep a few thousand people from showing up, or tens of thousands of people from showing up at the polls, because now I'm not going to bother. Okay, that's a nightmare situation. The article on the right, okay, this is real world. This is this past February, where this related to a video call, not only a video call, but a live video call, where there was a finance worker on a video call with a CFO, and it was so convincing, where you couldn't even tell that while lips were moving, different words were saying. They emulated the CFO's voice. Of course, they transcribed the photo. It was just so realistic, that the finance worker just had all the reason in the world to believe that it was legitimate. And over time, that worker paid out $25 million of that company's money, related to deep fake live video. Okay. When I get to the 3 tips, remember this, okay? Because this is coming This is coming soon to a theater near you. This is a new world we're living in. Okay. Now, before I talk about 3 tips, let's debate, and I want to hear Brandon's opinion, and feel free to chime in your own opinions into the chat or the Q&A interface. Who has the upper hand? So we're going to answer the question here. We're first going to respond who has the upper hand today. Okay, and I don't have a slide for this, but Brandon, I want to get your opinion on both who has the upper hand today and who has the upper hand in the years ahead. Okay? Yeah. So this is a chart here from our cyber threat defense report. Okay, and as security professionals, we don't get a lot of good news. We love to get good news, especially when it comes to the defense of our network. And this is a chart for the last 11 cycles, okay, from 2014 to 2024. And we asked, was your organization victimized by one or more successful attacks? The dark blue is at least one successful attack. The dark red is 6 or more successful attacks. So we see since the high point of the pandemic, when work from home, it was overnight, BYOD policies were embraced overnight, our attack surface increased overnight. So things are starting to trickle down to almost to where we are pre-pandemic. So we're ticking in the right direction. So that's really good news. On the ransomware front, we saw our first ever decline in successful ransomware attacks. And both of these data points have been backed up by other third-party cybersecurity reports. But we witnessed our first ever annual decline in successful ransomware attacks. Now, average ransom payments are still sky high. And even though it's nice that we're ticking down, still almost 2 out of 3 organizations were successfully victimized by ransomware. And if that's a topic of interest to you, Brandon and I have done several webinars on this topic. So go into Bright Talk and check those out. So we asked a new question in this year's Cyber Threat Defense Report. Ultimately, who do you believe will benefit more from advancements in artificial intelligence? IT security teams with improved defenses, or cyber threat actors with improved tactics? Now, there's 3 colors here in the donut chart. I want you to rule out just set aside for a moment the medium blue on the left, the 40.6. Those are people that aren't sure. They think it's a better way of saying it is they think it's a wash. They think that at least in the near term, threat actors will benefit equally to security teams. It's a wash. Okay. Now, the light blue are individuals that believe that security teams will benefit more. The dark red are those who believe that threat actors will benefit more. Okay. If you look at the ratio of the dark red to the light blue, it's about 3 to 2. In other words, 50% of those people who believe one or the other will benefit more, of those people, 50% more people, 50% more security professionals believes that AI gives security teams the upper hand than those who believe that AI gives cyber threat actors the other hand. Now, this is a perception question. Of course, there's no hard data who is the upper hand. It's your opinions are formed on information you read on the internet and what's going on in your organization and talking with your peers. I tend to believe, must have advanced the slide. I tend to believe that security teams will benefit more in the short run, but in the longer run, I'm in the blue. I don't want to think that threat actors will benefit more, but I'm not as convinced in the long run. I think security teams have the upper hand largely because of the innovations of these thousands of security vendors out there. But that's kind of the near term. Brandon, what's your take on this?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I've been a big tinker in this space, and I'll say I think exactly the opposite of you. I think that longer term we will probably be off better, but I think that currently we are running at a deficit. And the reason is that the advances that are happening much faster outside of the vendor space, which means the open source community or the underground community. The stuff that I am seeing come across my desk from just searching on GitHub or watching, vloggers talk about these new capabilities, I think that there is a phenomenal degree of democratization of this technology that is going unseen, like the iceberg where we just see the top and the rest is underwater. And I am already seeing advances in the open source community that far outpace what I'm seeing using the guardrails and controls in the enterprise. That said, I think when those catch up, enterprises get more comfortable, relax some of those restrictions, that balance of power will shift. But I think right now we're at a deficit.
Yeah. And I think the reason for your viewpoint, the reason for my viewpoint is explained because your career has largely been either protecting organizations from cyber threats or communicating directly with security professionals and
Yeah.
CISOs, where they live and breathe it every day. My career, 30 years of my career, I started out as a systems engineer for the first few years, but the balance of my career, 28 out of 30 years, has been serving or working with security vendors or systems integration firms, but largely with security vendors. In the last 13 years, and yesterday was my company's 13th birthday, CyberEdge Group, and thank you for pointing out. Yesterday was the birth of our new cybersecurity news website, Security Buzz. But for the last 13 years, I've been engaging predominantly with security vendors and service providers, and so I see the innovations that they come with. I am blown away, and honestly, my only hope for the future is that the massive investments that security vendors are going to make in improving defenses will outpace the advancements provided by threat actors. What is crystal clear, and I know Brandon and I will agree on this: AI is a double-edged sword, and regardless of who's going to benefit more, we need to be prepared. Okay, it's coming. It's here. Okay, it's already here. We're already seeing increased sophisticated attacks. We're seeing increased volume of attacks. We're seeing deep fakes. It's already here, and it's going to get worse. And we got to prepare. Here are 3 tips I have in mind. And now's a great time to pose any questions you have, and we'll save time at the end for Q&A. My favorite question that we ask every year is in our cyber threat defense report: scale of 1 to 5, 5 being highest. Rate how each of the following inhibit your organization from adequately defending itself against cyber threats. The top 2, sometimes they leapfrog year after year, but these are generally the top 2 that we see. And these relate to 2 of my 3 tips. I'm going to talk about the first 2 in tandem here a little bit. Okay. Number 1, low security awareness among employees. I think it was the last webinar we did, Find It on Bright Talk, 5 ways to invest in your human firewalls. Brandon and I gave you so much food for thought on how to take your security awareness program. And that's what I want you to call it. I want you to call it a program, to take your security awareness program to the next level. So make sure you catch that replay if you didn't attend live. And then the never-ending problem of lack of skilled personnel. Now, some of the capabilities of AI will help you to accomplish more with fewer resources, but that's still not going to take care of the problem. Okay, so how do we tackle these 2 problems? And these both of these problems are validated by Gartner. By 2025, the consumerization. Oh, and Gartner, as you know, in their research, and I've always been a monster fan of Gartner. They issue strategic planning assumptions, or SPAs. This is one of them. In their predicts 2023 cybersecurity industry focuses on the human deal report. Their strategic planning assumption is by 2025, the consumerization of AI-enabled fraud. Okay, AI-enabled fraud will fundamentally change enterprise attack surface, driving more outsourcing of enterprise trust and focus on security education and awareness. By 2025, lack of talent or human failure will be responsible for over half of significant cyber incidents. So, tip number 1, launch or improve your employee security awareness program. one of the things, and I love the feedback we get from the webinars at the end, and we value your feedback immensely. And one of the comments that we got from the last webinar we did on security awareness, and I was walking 6 inches off the floor, is during that webinar I talked about how in life, we have a tendency to focus on things that are urgent, and then we put off things that are important, and it's a constant battle between urgent and important. Okay, security awareness is important. Okay, it may not be like you have to have it done by October 31st or something like that, but I do encourage you to make it a priority. If you need to budget for it in your next fiscal year, but put a stake in the ground in terms of a date. Okay, put it on your calendar because it is massively, massively important. Otherwise, your company may fall victim to that company that fell for the live deep fake video. Your employees need to be aware of what phishing and spear phishing attacks are going to look like moving forward. Aware that they may get a voicemail that's fake, followed by an email that is fake, asking you to do something. Okay, they need to be aware. There's no excuse for not investing in your security awareness program. There's no excuse. This was a study done by the InfoSec Institute. They compared the return on investment in security awareness training. The yellow is before the program was implemented, the green is after, and this is awareness of phishing attacks, awareness of targeted emails or spear phishing attacks, awareness of social media and web scams. It makes a very big difference. We've got to invest in our human firewalls. That is tip number one. Tip number two, this goes back to lack of skilled personnel. Okay, Brandon and I have done a webinar on tips for recruiting and retaining security personnel. Okay, that's also on Bright Talk. And so we asked a question in this year's CDR: which of the following would help improve your overall job satisfaction in your company's IT security organization? Down at the bottom of the list, increase staffing to reduce stress. Yeah, that's on there. Improve healthcare, more paid time off. But number one on the top of the list, cybersecurity training and certification. That is the number one thing. And we see this also in surveys that have nothing in the world to do with IT or IT security in terms of improving job satisfaction. People want to feel like they're moving their careers forward. They want to be empowered. That's why so many people, including all of you, embrace security training and certification. I've been a CISSP for well over a decade. It was one of the best certification courses I've ever taken. And I've had a dozen certifications, technical certifications in my career. It's the only one that I still maintain today. But it is important. And you can use security training and certification as a carrot, okay, as an incentive for after you're with the company for 2 years or whatever it is, then you're eligible. Or maybe as a recruiting tool, we're going to recruit you, and then after you're here 6 months, we're going to enroll you in training and certification. Whatever you want to do, but leverage this, and because we need to close that skills gap. We need to think of ways to work smarter for recruiting and retention. Okay. Tip number three, again, the last at least the 20 of my 30 years have been working for technologies vendors and product management, product marketing roles, and head of marketing roles. We need to invest in security tools that embrace AI. Okay, tools that are so much more sophisticated at detecting malware and phishing, detecting anomalies, whether they're network anomalies or user behavioral anomalies, automating incident response, improving your identity and access management capabilities, scanning and scanning for vulnerabilities, prioritizing patching, detecting fraud, uh, you know, aggregating cyber threat intelligence, and also security awareness training and phishing simulation. And by the way, I'm a very big fan of phishing simulation. So these are security tools that where you can basically do simulated phishing attacks against your employees. And I believe it should be part of your security awareness program. I also believe that 100% of employees should go through training and be evaluated by phishing simulation, including all of you. And it's a great way. And it depending on if you fall for something, then it can step up, maybe do more. So all sorts of ways that security tools embrace AI. All right. So with that, Brandon, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we've got some time for questions.
Question about some of your statistics regarding the reduction in successful attacks. Question was, are more of these types of attacks going unreported or underreported, perhaps because the stigma associated with paying the ransom, or otherwise kind of sweeping it under the rug, especially I think in light of the SEC guidance around materiality disclosures? Do you think we're going to see that number bump back up because the reporting is going to have to be kind of above the board?
I don't have data on the latter part of your question because this is a survey that's based on largely on perceptions of security professionals like you. And the way we ask the question is, was your organization victimized by a successful attack within the preceding 12 months? Now, we didn't say ransomware attack. We didn't say advanced persistent threat, but we left it generic on purpose. It could be a DDoS attack. And it doesn't necessarily have to result in a data breach. But we ask this question the same way year after year after year after year so that we can determine metrics. Now, tis the season for the presidential election, and we see polling every day, right? So the larger the sample size, and you'll see that the vast majority of polls out there that you see on the internet and TV, if you look at the sample size, it's over 1,000. And that's because you want a low survey margin of error. So our cyber threat defense report, the global stats with 1,200 responses, is plus or minus 3%. So in other words, it's highly statistically significant. But I don't have any data to talk about, disclosure trends and how that might impact. We just have data that of this question that we ask the same way year after year after year.
Well, it's that consistency that we appreciate from you and your team, Steve. It'll be interesting to see if those numbers are still ticking in the same direction here soon. I know you and I have both talked about this. We're passionate about the cybersecurity workforce. You mentioned it earlier on as well with that human firewall and awareness. I think personally, we are going to see kind of almost like cyborgs come out of our socks, right? It's going to be people co-working essentially with these agent-like technologies, and that's going to further augment our capabilities. Some people are taking a more negative approach in our questions area and thinking it's going to have a negative impact on especially lower level jobs. Just anecdotally, and a sign of your optimism or pessimism, which way do you think this is going to break for the cybersecurity labor market?
So, well, first I'll say I'm more optimistic. I'm a glasses half full kind of guy. So when ATM machines were invented, was there decreased demand for bank tellers? Yeah. Okay. But it was a net positive for society. Those people that would have otherwise been bank tellers found some other profession, and it was a net positive. Will artificial intelligence get rid of some cybersecurity jobs? I think the answer is yes. And that could be a blessing to security teams because we already have a shortfall. Okay. Now, selfishly, selfishly, we all know that, we know what the laws of supply and demand. Okay. And when there's more demand than there are supply, that, things cost more and we make more money when there's less, when there's more demand than there's supply. So I do think artificial intelligence will, I'll say eliminate some rudimentary jobs where things can be automated in a specific way. And if threat detection tools, okay, detection and prevention, if these tools are, get better and better and better, and let's say the CDR is right, and there are fewer successful attacks. Well, fewer successful attacks means fewer incident response or fewer incidents where you don't need as big of an incident response team, where you don't need as many people. So it's kind of a good thing for the company. It's a good thing for the business, but it may impact certain roles. But there's cybersecurity is not going away, and we've already talked about how AI is a double-edged sword, and it's going to improve the threat tactics of our cyber adversaries. So there may be new jobs that we haven't even contemplated yet. Back to that slide, holding the iPhone for the first time in 2007, you had no idea what innovations there were going to be in the next 15, 20 years. Had no idea. It's the same thing with AI. We don't know what we don't know. So I think everything's going to be fine. I think as cybersecurity professionals, there's always going to be a home for us. I think we're going to find ways to work smarter rather than harder. But regardless, it is going to be interesting in the years ahead to see how the industry evolves.
No, I agree. And I had a colleague of mine make a kind of an offhand throwaway comment, but I filed it away. It's AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who uses it better and more effectively than you just might. And that's where I kind of got into this co-working kind of cyborg kind of analogy. But we've had 3 or more questions come in around a particular area that often bumps up against cybersecurity, and that is kind of the audit side of things. I haven't really seen generative AI used much in either any sort of audit, assessment, or assurance work. I have a feeling it might be coming, but I'm not quite sure that it's going to have the impact. The closest I've come is doing policy reviews, for example, but nothing really meaningful beyond your traditional kind of machine learning statistical analysis. Are you hearing of anything in kind of the audit/GRC space for our CGRC folks in the audience?
I have not specifically, but thinking big picture, and then I want to make a really quick comment based on what you just said a moment ago. But thinking big picture, I don't think there is a nook or a cranny of the cybersecurity function that is not going to be touched by artificial intelligence. And I think there's going to be hardly any tools that we use today and that we'll be using tomorrow that are not improved because of artificial intelligence. So I would expect artificial intelligence to drive innovations in GRC. But back to what you were saying just a moment ago, you made me think of something. You remember when SaaS apps first came out? Salesforce.com being the first, and then so many other apps to follow, and SaaS just exploded, and there was this notion that what, the whole world's moving to SaaS, and before long, IT people are just going to be down to having to change printer toner. That's what IT is going to do. You're not even going to need to have many other IT people because everything is SaaS based. Was that true? Nope, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think that could be the same situation today, where there's concern that AI is going to automate so many things and take away jobs and whatever, and then now there's not going to be many jobs left because it's all going to be automated. I'm not buying it. I think that it's going to be interesting in the years ahead, but I don't think cybersecurity jobs on the whole in the aggregate are going away anytime soon. And
It's
I
just
really
like with
ever will.
the Industrial Revolution, right? It
Yes.
didn't do away with all the jobs. It brought new ones, just like the cloud
Yes.
did. Well, Steve, I
Yes.
love your optimism, and I'm definitely looking forward to connecting you at the ISC2 Congress this year. I'm excited also for Security Buzz. You're going to be there as a media attendee, so you're going to
Yes.
probably get some exclusive backstage access. I can't
I hope
I can't
so.
wait. You're going to get invited to the best parties, my friend. As always, great having you on. Thank you, everybody, for your time and your attention, your fantastic questions. Lots of great material, including Steve's report, as well as these slides over in the attachments and links section. I had a few questions about that. Definitely avail yourself of those, and feel free to pass along this URL. Shortly after we conclude, it is recorded and republished, so it'll be available to your friends and colleagues who couldn't make it. With that, Steve, thank you so much. As always, I'm looking forward to seeing you next month. Everybody, take care, and I look forward to continuing the conversation soon.